Alright, guys, welcome back. We are playing Higurashi When They Cry. Chapter 5, Meakashi. Last time, like the worst things ever happened. It wasn't great, huh? I, uh, I wish I could say that I've thought about what happened to Satoshi, and that I have an answer now. But I really don't. The only thing I know is that, um, Oishi Oishi's theory. My problem with Oishi's theory about Sashi's disappearance, which I guess it's only a problem just in like a meta way almost. It's just that Oishi always blames everything on the Sonozakis. So of course his theory is going to be that it was all the Sonozakis who did it and blah 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 blah, right? And again, it's like my problem with this is I don't have a reason really to say that I don't think it was the Sonozakis who made him disappear, right? I don't have like a meta reason to disagree with it because I think Oryu and the Sonozaki family being responsible in some part for some amount of disappearances like this, I don't think goes against like any kind of message that the game would be telling us, right? Like my problem, for example, with like Mion like secretly being evil and all of that, right? The problem with that is it would, with like the themes of the game and like the way Keiichi was thinking about his friends and all of this, it just wouldn't make any sense, right? The author wouldn't do that. Have Mion actually be an evil monster killing everyone. But like Oryu, I can imagine it, right? So I don't have like a thematic meta reason to say it's not the Sonozakis that made Sachi disappear. I just think because it's Oishi saying it, because that information is coming from Oishi, or that theory, I guess, in general, because it's coming from him, and he always thinks everything is the Sonozakis, he always blames everything on them, um, I just don't think it is, right? And maybe that's stupid. It's just like when I think it was two sub chapters ago, when they gave us like the stuff that was going down at Watanagashi and all of that. And there's the scene with Oryu, right, talking to whoever. And she said like, oh, no one who respects Shiro-sama or whatever would miss the festival. It was something like that, right? It just it makes it clear to me, in a sense, I believe, that the Sonozakis use the fear of Oyashiro-sama and the curse deaths and all of this as a way to justify and maintain the power they have in Hinamizawa, right? Um, so I guess the question is they're using it and it benefits them in some way. That doesn't mean they have to be responsible for it, right? It makes sense why Oishi would see that the Sonozakis are very much using the fact that Oyashiro-sama is killing people and all of this as a way to cement themselves in power and be like, oh yeah, we have like divine authority, blah blah blah. That's kind of like Oryu's attitude, right? So it makes sense that he would suspect them of it. Um, but I think it goes back to like what we talked about in chapter 4, where Oryu didn't actually like order the kidnapping of that guy, of the kid, right? It's just they are they're very good at using circumstances like that where they don't directly do anything like for their own benefit. And I kind of think all the disappearances and stuff are like kind of in that same vein. Especially because it's like now I feel like we have so much info on like other stuff back in the past, previous curse killings, all that kind of stuff, where I feel like it's hard to pin any of it on the Sonozakis at all. I just think they use the fact that you could think of them as being responsible in some way to their benefit. And that's the reason why I want to say, therefore, Satoshi probably wasn't them either, right? But the fact that he did disappear after all of this stuff happened with them, like, for example, that's going to have quite the effect on Shion, right? Maybe not the effect they want. I think it might turn her against them significantly. Um, but like it would have quite the effect on people with this idea that like enemies not only just of the village are disappearing, but enemies more specifically of the Sonozakis. But that's only because the Sonozakis almost define themselves as the village, right? So like it doesn't have to be the Sonozakis doing it. So I don't know. It's not really like any logical like evidence or anything, any reason I have to doubt that the Sonozakis made Sachi disappear. Other than I don't think they've ever done it in any of the previous cases or any of the cases after this, like Tomitake, Takano, any of the stuff Keiichi does, like previous chapters. So I don't know. That's kind of all I have to say. And like, I mean, there's all this stuff about him like having bought the teddy bear. It's like I guess someone else could have bought it. That's what Oishi was saying, and I guess that makes sense, right? But it's like who would have known about the teddy bear even? You know? I just don't even know, right? If it wasn't the Sonozakis, like, because the idea is that the Sonozakis are like part of owning the store he was going to buy the teddy bear from, right? So if it wasn't the Sonozakis that had any involvement in it, then who would it have been? Unless he did buy the teddy bear, and then what? He just went into crazy lunatic mode and ran off into the woods and tore out his own throat? Like, maybe, right? I don't know. I really don't know. Let's continue.
今、なんて
Talking to Mion? No,
信
Kasa.
頼できる筋の噂ですが、サトシ君のおば殺しの犯人が見つかったらしいです。
The cover-up. Which, I guess I believe that this cover-up situation is probably from the Sonozakis. Again, I guess I could believe that it's not. I just don't really have any information about it. I guess it's about to give me information about it, but, like, you know. And I think... Does that make sense? If it wasn't the Sonozakis that made Sachi disappear, yeah, I think they have, like, separate reasons for wanting to cover for it, right? They still wouldn't want the Sonozakis to be directly connected to Satoshi in this way if he is the person who murdered his aunt, right? Which, I mean, he was, right? So that makes sense. They don't have to have any part in his disappearance, then. It's like a separate motivation, right? It had been a few weeks since the murder. Satoshi-kun still hadn't been found. I had no new information on his whereabouts. Kasai's report came, as a result, completely out of the blue.
それって、警察が逮捕したって意味
What was the story about it again? It's like he confessed to it after being interrogated for an unrelated crime or
聞いた
something?
話では、
Yeah,
逮
yeah.
捕というより、別件で取り調べを受けていた男が余罪として自供したんだとか。
I wonder, I mean, like, I can imagine that happening, right? I can imagine it being someone who, I don't know, someone who did something bad and the Sonozakis were going to torture him for it, and this was his punishment instead, you know? That sounded strange. If it was Satoshi-kun they arrested, he wouldn't have ordered it that way. It sounded as though Satoshi-kun wasn't the
葛
culprit.
西、結局、犯人って誰だったの
So it wasn't Satoshi-kun? I swallowed those final words. I was convinced that it was Satoshi-kun. The police and Oishi must have thought the same way. The reason Oishi approached me is because he was convinced that Satoshi-kun did it.
ご安心を。サトシ君ではないようですよ。連
but
続
like
開始事件を
Shion
起こ
knows,
した
right?
異常者の犯行というような話みたいです。
Does Shion know? Does Shion have any actual reason to think it was Satoshi who did it, other than just, like, being sure of it? It's just being obvious, you know? I don't know if she will at all accept the idea that it wasn't Satoshi.
はい異常者
A
何
lunatic.
それ
Kasai shrugged.
さあ、何しろ今回の事件は秘匿捜査指定というものがかかっているんだそうです。なので、ほとんど情報が出回らないんです。
Okay.
秘匿捜査何それ
Well, because it's one of the
連
murders,
続
right?
開
Yeah,
始事
yeah.
件による村への風評被害対策ということらしいです。誘拐事件なんかでも犯人との交渉が行われている間は新
Exactly,
聞に
right.
載らなかったりするでしょ
Same
う。
reason in, like, chapter 4. Yeah,
ああ
yeah.
いう類のものらしいです。
Come to think of it, I hadn't seen anything about the aunt's murder on TV or in the newspaper.
何しろ4年連続で綿流しの日に事件が起こっているわけですからね。
Especially, it's like when it seems like a situation that's so, like, there's so many, like, copycat killers almost, it feels like, from the police's perspective, maybe. They want to make it, they don't want to keep spreading it, because every time it's a big story, another one happens.
お社様のたたりだと騒いで面白がる輩も多いそうですし。そうそう、なんでもそのおば殺しの異常者ですが、連続
Oh, and
開
he
始
even
事件を起
literally
こしたくて
said
行った
that.
と
Yeah,
自供し
yeah.
たんだとか。
Kasai didn't know anything else, so instead of probing him further, I reviewed the information myself. I was really shocked to learn all of this. I was convinced that Satoshi-kun killed her. I thought that was the reason he had to disappear. But, like, Shion's smart. I feel like she is going to think of it and think that it was the Sonozakis who, like, did this to cover for him, right? But it was actually some lunatic who killed her, and he had no relation to the aunt whatsoever. So, Sachi-kun had nothing to do with the murder? If so, why did he disappear? Exactly, right? I couldn't accept that this lunatic had killed the aunt. And what's really strange is the phrase Kasai used, 4 years in a row now. After all, I'd been thinking that this murder happened because Sachi-kun had been in a dire situation. It had nothing to do with the series of mysterious deaths. Well, exactly, right? Because it's always like that, right? It's never... there isn't a series of mysterious deaths, right? There's actually an explanation like this for all of them. I felt as though Sachi-kun's case had become somebody else's. The series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa is also known as the Curse of Ueshiro-sama. Sachi-kun's case had become one of those mysterious deaths, exactly. In other words, Sachi-kun's case has become part of Ueshiro-sama's curse. I didn't like the way that sounded, because it was as though the curse had swallowed Sachi-kun. And she has her own thoughts about the curse, right? Her own, like, trepidation about it. It's just Shion is definitely much more logical and, like, kind of more grounded, I think, in her thoughts than, like, Keiichi is. So I wonder how her thoughts about the curse are going to develop as we go along here. Again, it's like I'm worried about her own potential descent into madness, but I guess we'll see.
例の東京行きの新幹線に乗ったらしいという情報も確認が取れないままです。
Right, right.
正直なところ、県の中にいるのか外にいるのか、それすらも分かっちゃいません。
I mean, it seems like the information about him taking a train to Tokyo is just, like, so unverified and just completely, I don't know, it seems so circumstantial and so, like, I don't know, it could just be complete nonsense. But I feel like it should mean something, right? Was that also part of this plan to make him disappear? Maybe. Ueshi broke the seal on a new can of instant coffee.
あれだけ胸を張ってサトシ君が犯人だと息巻いていたから、もう行方を掴んでるとばかり思ってました。
It is interesting that Shion has such a history with Ueshi, thinking back to her attitude about him in Chapter 2. I guess I wonder how this all ends up.
いやいや、情けない限りです。
Ueshi chuckled and poured a cup of coffee, which looked far too hot. Oh god, not the
しか
heat.
し、耳が早いな。
はい？
一口操作してだってのに、
Mm-hmm.
どこの誰が漏らしてるやら。やれやれ。
Okay.
うちの
Don't-
包丁も
Yeah, don't
問
be
題があるな。
somehow leaking whatever's up with Kasai knowing about this. Ueshi smirked. Seemed he knew why I was here
ま
today.
あ、腐ってもその先の端くれですので、
She just knows
多
everything.
少の噂は耳にできますということで。
I smirked back at him. It's all about bluff.
まあいいか。腹を割り合った仲ですしね。
Are you?
いいですよ。おしゃべりしましょう。
まず聞かせてください。
I think I would rather. There's really a long list of things I would rather be subjected to than have a chat with Ueshi. Like that would be one of the worst fates I can imagine. Having to sit down next to Ueshi and have a chat. Like I can't even imagine it.
真犯人って一体何者です？異常者とか聞きましたけど、それってどういうことですか？
What does that mean? Because there's no way Ueshi's gonna buy it, right? But at the same time, it's like, I don't know.
どういうことって言われたってね。そりゃ私だって言いたいですよ。私はサトシ君が犯人の一点読みでしたからね。
For
とんだ
logical
万馬券が飛び出した
reasons,
もんです。
And the thing is, this is obviously just going to convince Ueshi even more that the Sonozakis have to be completely behind it, that there's this great conspiracy they're enacting to cover it all up, right? And I guess in a sense they are. I guess in a sense the Sonozakis are trying to cover up the murders, because they do use them and like the mysterious Ueshiro-sama-ness behind it for their own benefit. So I guess they kind of are. So of course, from Ueshi's perspective, yeah. Ueshi threw himself on the sofa and crossed his hands behind his head. He looked up at the ceiling and smiled wryly.
先日ですね、県警の方から急に連絡が来たんですよ。
Okay.
すでに逮捕して取り調べをしている男が主婦殺しを自供したって。
それは何者？
And I'm sure, I guess it's just my immediate assumption he was just like told to do that by the Sonozakis or something, you know, that it was in some way, and the motivation he would have to do it is like he was, you know, he was on the Yakuza's bad side or something. He was like forced to do it, basically. I imagine, right?
薬に手を出したとんでもない野郎でしてね。
Yeah, like that, like who knows?
出
He
所
was
し
in
ては
debt or
捕まるの
something.
繰り返しだそうです。ひなみ沢村連続開始事件が面白そうだったんで、4年目のたたりは自分が下してみたくなった。
But how is his story gonna make any
間
sense?
違いなく
You
そい
know?
つが犯人。
私が直接話を聞いたわけじゃないんですがね。先方が取った供述調書には、いわゆる犯人しか知り得ない情報ってやつががっつりと含まれていたんですよ。
What kind of information? Okay, I'll wait to theorize. I just wonder. I wonder if it is something that Eerie could have known and could have passed along in some way. Because Eerie was there very shortly after the death, right? Because Oishi wanted him to identify the body. So I wonder if it would be some kind of information that Eerie would know, and whatever his involvement with all of this is, could have passed on for this culprit to say, that would then be information only they would know, you know?
凶器を王子川のどこかで捨てたって言ってましてね。
Ooh, okay.
今はドブさらいの最中です
So
よ。
they haven't found it.
これで供述通りに凶器が発見されれ
But
ば
that's
完璧でしょうな。
very easy to fake, right? They could have put it there yesterday.
たとえ凶器が見つからなくても、おおむね確定。
確定でしょうな。
Like let's say what the information that the culprit had was just like what kind of injury she had or something, right? That would be something that Eerie would know because he was there right after, right? And in whatever Eerie's connection to the Sonozakis / whatever's going on is, he could have told them that, and then the culprit could confess to that, right?
現場の状況と仏の状況を正確に供述しています。
Okay.
襲った本人にしかわからないような細かいあたりまでね。
納得は言ってないみたいですね。
Oishi could even think of that, right? About Eerie. Oishi, still looking up at the ceiling, went quiet.
実はね、とっくに亡くなってるんですよ。うちに連
Right.
絡があった
Yeah.
時には
Yeah.
すでに。
Yeah. And again, I'm sure it's yeah.
亡くなってる？
給食とかに出てくるでしょ。
I'm sure it's some kind of
Like what is
Yakuza Sonozaki thing, right? It must be. I feel like it must be, you know? I don't have any other explanation for why someone would confess like this other than the Sonozaki saying, oh, we're gonna kill your whole family if you don't do all of this, you know?
留置場の食事にもあれが出てくるんですよ。そいつを飲み込んで窒息したんだとか。
God.
自殺なのか錯乱なのか。ちょっと区別がつかないですがね。
Especially that, him doing it to himself. I mean, that's just like what they made Shion do with her nails, you know? I imagine somebody swallowing that spoon and gagged.
だから十分に納得するまで調べられたわけじゃありません。私は納得できないんですがね。どうもその愉快犯が主婦殺しの犯人ってことで決着しそうな流れです。
Interesting. Oishi turned his eyes from the ceiling to me. He looked serious.
これは個人的な意見ですよ。
I guess, like, if I'm going with his idea that Eerie is the one who passed on the information about the crime scene and the body to the Sonozakis for this purpose, I really need to flesh out more what I actually think Eerie's involvement in any of this is, right? Obviously, Eerie cares about Satoshi, right? Eerie really cares about Satoshi, right? So he wouldn't be helping the Sonozakis if he thinks that they're the ones who made Satoshi disappear, who killed him, right? That wouldn't make any sense, right? And that feels very important to note. But I don't really know where to go from there, right? Because I feel like this is predicated on like two different assumptions, right? The idea that the Sonozakis are involved. No, the idea that Eerie is the one who passed this information, so therefore he wouldn't work with the Sonozakis if they were involved because he cares about Satoshi, right? There's too many assumptions there to like say that therefore this is evidence of the Sonozakis not being involved with his disappearance, right? Because I guess it's all relying on this first assumption that Eerie's the one who passed on the information. I don't know. Maybe I wish you were saying. That's why I don't want to theorize, like,
私は
during scenes.
この大バカたりは何かの間違いだと思ってます。
Okay, of
何
course.
かの偶然による壮大
I
な
don't think
勘違い
it's that.
か
I think it is specifically
もしくは
planned.
ね
Nay.
全然意味わかんないですよ、大石のおじさま。
私は今でも犯人は北
Of
条
course,
聡
of
君だと思っ
course.
ています。
きっぱり言い切りますね。
残念ながら現場検証では犯人を特定できるような痕跡は何一つ発見できませんでした。
I feel like in a sense, God, my hair's driving me crazy. In a sense, I feel like Sadashi did better than Keiichi at at this murder, even though the body was immediately found. At least he didn't go back to the site of the body and was digging around in the woods right afterwards and have Rishi find him, right?
サトシ君が失踪した後、家宅捜索の許可が下りましてね。家を改めさせてももらいましたが。
それでもサトシ君が犯人だと疑ってる。
Of course. The motive, I guess, right?
証拠もないのに大したもんです。
It also just fits. It just fits with, like, the previous murders, too. And Oishi isn't immune to that line of thinking, right? That there's a murder, there's a disappearance, right?
長年の勘ってやつですか？
What is this track? Germination of discomfort. Right.
ええ、この道で何十年も飯を食ってきた男の直感です。
Oishi smiled in satisfaction, but I didn't feel relieved.
サトシ君はどこへ？
サトシ君が失踪した理由の一つこそが、
Exactly.
彼が犯人であるからだと固く
It
信
also
じてい
just
たんです。
it makes sense that he would run away, even if it wasn't related to, like, a curse or
サト
anything,
シ
you
君
know?
が犯人でないなら、そのあたりがかなり薄れちゃいますからね。
おば殺しの犯人はその愉快犯で、サトシ君の失踪とは無関係。
In that sense, that's also a very flawed line of reasoning, because it's like, people would know that you're gonna think like that. So I'm not saying this is what happened, but they could make someone disappear in order to pin the murder on them, right? Like, that's not what happened here. I'm just saying, like, that's kind of a dangerous line of thought for Oishi to, like, jump on, you know?
サトシ君失踪は、私とサトシ君の仲を裂くために、園崎本家がやったもの。おば殺しとは無関係。という考え方は？
Right, because, again, it's like, obviously Satoshi killed his aunt, right? I really don't think we're gonna do the greatest troll of all time and tell me that it wasn't Satoshi who did it. Just because it looks like Satoshi did it, that's reason enough for the Sonozaki family to not, like, share a relationship with him, right? I mean, he wouldn't have actually had to have even done it, you know? Was Satoshi-kun a culprit, or a victim, or both? The reason for his disappearance had become unclear. It's also interesting thinking about it. I don't remember if I've talked about this before. It's interesting thinking about the difference between Satoshi's decision to kill his aunt and Keiichi's decision to kill Teppei. Because Satoshi was actually being actively abused by her, you know? So it just feels like it fits much more into the category of, like, self-defense. It feels like it fits much more into, like, an acceptable action to have taken compared to what Keiichi did to Teppei, right? I don't know. It's like I was thinking about, like, if Sadako in Chapter 3 was actively being abused by Teppei and then she pulled out a gun and shot him. Right, she doesn't have a gun, but you know what I mean. That would, like, be self-defense. You know what I mean? Obviously, in this case, Satoshi, like, planned it out, right? He knew he planned it out, he knew he was gonna do it, you know, all of this, you know. So I guess it's different. To me, it's still much more morally acceptable than what Keiichi did. Obviously, yeah, you know, it's so hard to morally condemn even what Keiichi did in Chapter 3, right? I guess my problem with it is I by definition, I feel like I just have to be against the idea of killing people. Just, like, full stop, right? I just feel like that can't be the answer. You just can't plan and murder people. I just feel like that can't be the right answer, you know? But just Satoshi being the actual victim just makes it feel so different, you know?
私は旧敵との恋仲程度で人一人を失踪させるなんてリスクを冒すとは思わないんですがね。
And it isn't just for that reason, right?
実際、
It's because of the
園崎
murder.
家の内部としてはどうなんです？シオンさんはそのあたり
Will she
何か
tell
ご存
him
知？
anything, I
知って
wonder?
いたらこんなとこに来ません。
I guess what does she have to tell him, right?
ごもっともごもっとも。
Ueshi laughed out loud while scratching his head. And after he stopped laughing, he leaned over.
よーし。なら一つどうですかね。協定を結びませんか。
Okay.
紳士協定。
協定？何のです？
サトシ君失踪事件。
They both
捜
tell
査
each
情
other
報
everything,
共
I
有
guess.
協定。
Everything they learn about it, maybe.
裏の界隈でサトシ君の失踪に関する情報を得られたら、もちろん私もサトシ君についての情報が入ったらあなたに提供します。
Seems like a very unfair deal because, of course, Oishi thinks it's the Sonozaki's, and Shion is a Sonozaki, right? So I think he's really betting on her getting a lot more information than he does.
いかがです？
なんだか一方的な虫のいい話に思えますけど。
He's also the one trying to investigate and solve it, right? Oishi chuckled.
シオンさん、このまま行くと主婦殺しの犯人はすでに死んでるその大バカタレってことで確定すると思います。そうなるとサトシ君の扱いは単なる家出人になります。
God, I hate him so much.
つまり積極的な捜査は打ち切られるということです。
Because, you know, he doesn't care about Satoshi at all. He wants to put Satoshi in jail for murder. He doesn't care about Satoshi. He's just using this to, like, emotionally manipulate her. I hate him so much.
ですが私だけは続けます。
Because obviously, because he knows Shion doesn't actually care about solving the murder or whatever, right? Or solving Satoshi's disappearance. She just wants Satoshi back, right? That's what she cares about. God.
私だけはサトシ君の行方を引き続き
Yeah,
探します。
yeah.
シオンさんも私もサトシ君の行方を探しているという点では一致してると思うんですがね。
目的が全然違いますがね。
Very.
私は単に無事を確認したいだけです。
Exactly. Thank you.
大
Thank you.
石のおじさまにとっては逮捕が目的でしょうから。
Thank you, Shion.
主婦殺しが決着すればサトシ君は無実ってことになりますよ。真実はどうかは別にしてもね。
I guess. But it's not like Oishi wouldn't do everything he can to find evidence for Satoshi. Right? I just don't believe that for a second, right? God, I hate that face. Oishi chuckled again, but his smile didn't reach his eyes.
まあ今後も仲良くやり
Let's
まし
not,
ょう。
let's not.
敵の敵は味方とも言いますしね。
別に私、
I don't know.
その崎本家と敵対しているわけじゃありませんよ。
Of course you aren't.
なあ、本当に？ならそりゃ失礼。
Wish you were, Shion. This is the way of Kurata Oishi, huh? As Setsun Kasai said, I wouldn't want him as my enemy or my ally, because both would be too risky. I probably shouldn't let my guard down in front of this big, fat weasel. Thank you. Good description. I sipped on the coffee to fill up the silence, though I wasn't thirsty. Outside the window, I could see normal life taking its course. But Sachi-kun wasn't there. He should have been there, but he wasn't. I was scared that I might grow used to his absence someday. Oh, that's so sad. I was actually thinking about that. I didn't say it, but I was thinking, like, I wonder at what point she, like, almost gives up, right? She gives up on the idea that he's just gonna come back, you know? Obviously, she never gives up completely, right? Like, her never officially quitting as the manager of the baseball team, I think, is an example of her never giving up completely, right? But there is some point where it's like, she's gonna stop thinking he's gonna be back, you know? Where was he?
サトシ君はどうしてるんだろう。
無事だといいんですがね。
生きてる可能性は薄いとか思っているくせに、気休め言わないでほしいです。
サトシ君の失踪、ひなみ沢じゃなんて言われてるか知ってます？
Meakashi.
鬼隠しにあった
Absolutely.
なんて言われてるんだとか。
To be demoned away means the same thing as being spirited away. It's part of the local dialect. Well, I a little bit of a different context, maybe, between Kamikashi and Onikashi. I don't know.
鬼が淵沼の底の鬼の国にさらわれたって？バカバカしい。
Yeah, it kinda is.
とにもかくにも連続開始事件もこれで4年目です。気の早い話ですがね、来年もまた起こるんじゃないかなんて。
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. I wonder... You know, like, obviously talking about the next year makes me think about Takano. Where is Takano? Is Takano here yet? Like, yeah, she is, right? I just wonder, like, what's Takano doing? Does Takano know anything about any of this? You know, I guess I doubt it. I don't know.
おば殺しがお社様のたたりのせいだって言うんですか？
Because I guess it's interesting, because I'm saying the Sonozakis have nothing to do with the murders, in my mind, but they use them to their benefit, right? And they help cover them up, I think, almost, in cases like this. Because they want them to continue, because they use this, like, Oyashiro-sama stuff and all this for their own benefit, right? So then what's up with Takano, right? We know Takano is responsible for the murder next year. Tomitake and Takano. Tomitake's death, Takano's disappearance, right? So it's like, in a sense, she has a similar motivation, it seems, in terms of, like, wanting to continue them, right? I guess we just don't know enough. We just don't know what Takano's doing or why or anything, right? Also, like, her killing Rika, right? Which I still just don't... Is she just a lunatic, right? Because, like, that doesn't make any sense, you know? I don't know.
全体的に見てみれば仏も北条家の一人。
Because now I'm just going down the same line of thought that I've gone down so many times, which is just like, yet again, what am I even solving, right? Is there even a culprit for everything, right? Like, if I'm saying the Sonozakis aren't actually doing the murders, but they were just helping cover them up every time, or like taking part in it in that way, because they use the feeling of fear about Oyashiro-sama, all of this, to their own benefit. Sure, that means they have nothing to actually do with the murders, though. And Takano... I don't think Takano has anything to do with any of the murders until the one that happens this year with Tomitake. But why does she do it? Why does she kill Tomitake? Just because she's a lunatic who likes murder and wants to fulfill the lore? That's crazy, right? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, maybe it does. Maybe she is just crazy. I don't know, right? Well, we know she loves freaking people out and telling them about it. But that's not, like, a logical thing that makes any sense. And even it's like, okay, I can point to Takano for killing Tomitake, faking her own death. Like, I guess my idea... What I've said about Oishi in the past, about him having met with the people who, like, commit murder or are murdered, like, shortly before their deaths, right? Is it's like he has, like, the emotional reaction that people have to him, I think, kind of goes hand in hand with the weird emotional requirement for the crazy shit that makes you go crazy, that it seems like there is in some way, you know? Like Oishi basically driving Keiichi crazy and increasing his paranoia so much in Chapter 1. That feels very similar to what Takano was, like, doing in Chapter 2 to Keiichi and Shion, right? Takano went in there, said all this crazy shit about Watanagashi and disemboweling people and all of this. Then Shion went crazy and started killing everyone, right? Seems similar, right? I wouldn't put it past Takano that in some way she knows something about it, right? We know she knows all this stuff about the lore, so it's possible that she in some way knows about the crazy shit that makes you go crazy, and that was her goal, right? So, like, maybe, I guess I can imagine that she just wants to do that. I feel like that doesn't really... It just feels crazy, though. Why did she fake her own death, though? You know, why did she kill Tomitake? Why did she kill Rika in Chapter 3, other than just the insane, deranged, psychopathic, lunatic reason of wanting to see what happened and then everyone dies? I don't know. We've talked about this so many times. I don't know.
ダム戦争の戦犯と縁がないわけじゃないですからね。
Because it's like, I feel like there's... It's not that we know Takano had no involvement with any of the previous deaths. It's just there's no reason to think that she did. I feel like there's no place where we have a gap in our knowledge about the previous deaths where we have to insert Takano in there. Other than, like, what? Like I guess, right? Like, we don't really know anything about Sadako's parents' deaths or Rika's parents' deaths. So I guess I could just say, oh, it was Takano. But there's no reason to think that at all, right? Or this year, for sure. There's literally nowhere to put Takano at all. Other than, I guess we could say maybe she was having some secret off-screen chats with Satoshi and driving him crazy. Like, maybe. I still think so, right?
しかもまたしても渡流しの日にとなれば
Let me read that
面
again.
白
Sorry,
が
I
る
was
連中
reading one.
が現れるのも無理もないことです。
Okay.
バカバカしい。何がお社様のたたりだ。
Though I said that, I couldn't quite wipe away the fear from my mind. Why did Satoshi-kun disappear? I also feel like this whole like culture of Oyashiro-sama's curse. I feel like if the crazy shit that makes you go crazy is in some way like whatever makes it activate or whatever is some way, like, dependent on, like, a feeling of paranoia and that kind of thing, right? We've kind of seen that with every instance of it in a way. All of this supernatural fear about Ueshiro-sama's curse certainly that contributes to that, you know? Like, Keiichi in Chapter 1 was really fallen for that, right? And Shion in Chapter 2. I guess we just don't know how... I just have no idea what was going on with Shion in Chapter 2, right? Like, she was so... It just depends how lucid she was when she was, like, talking to Keiichi on the phone about all that shit. I just have no idea. Why did Sachiki-kun disappear? Was it the Sonozaki family? Did he run away from the police? Did he really kill his aunt in the first place? Why did he even disappear? He's on his own. Oishiro-sama's curse has nothing to do with it. But... That's strange. Sachiki-kun and Oishiro-sama's curse. Somebody once mentioned those two together before. Right now. When did I hear that? Oh, that's right. That rainy day. It was Rona Ryugu who told me that when we were taking shelter in that shack. I remember that creepy story that she told me at that time.
Satoshi-kun wa kokoro no doko de.
Obviously, there's also, like, in terms of just, like, general overall stuff, there's all of the weird stuff with Rena and the crazy shit that makes you go crazy that I just don't know anything about and I have no answers for. I just have no... I don't know.
Hinamizawa wo sutete, dokoka e nigedashitai to omotteru kara.
That's what Rena Ryugu said. Rena had definitely pointed out that Sachiki-kun wanted to leave Hinamizawa at that time. She also said,
Satoshi-kun ga taiken shite iru koto wa subete Oyashiro-sama no tatari no maebure nano.
She said that, for sure. She had definitely mentioned Oishiro-sama's curse. The series of mysterious deaths has struck 4 times. Was Sachiki-kun being controlled by the curse? Is that why he killed his aunt and was demoned away? No way. That can't be true. Sachiki-kun's smile faded away in my mind. I don't think it is like any... There's no curse. I don't think it's being controlled by it. Because I don't think the crazy shit that makes you go crazy... Well, it definitely makes you do things you wouldn't do otherwise, right? It feels like it takes an emotion and it amplifies it extremely, right? Like Chapter 1 Keiichi, you know? He had genuine paranoia and all of this stuff, right? That would kind of, like, fit with his feeling of, like, not fitting in, kind of just his insecurities in that way. Obviously, he wouldn't have killed Rena and Mion without the effect of it, you know? But I don't think it's fair to say he was controlled. I think it excuses his actions, because it is like an outside thing affecting him that he wouldn't have done without it. Right. It's not like I blame all of the characters, like, personally for what they do when they're affected by it, right? Sachiki-kun disappeared. Not only that, the reason for his disappearance also disappeared. It must have been done by human beings. I can't accept that he was demoned away. Notebook, page 43. Yeah. Have we been getting the notebook pages, like, in chronological order? I think so, right? I should go back through the tips. I moved from one chair to another because the air conditioning was too cold. Oh god, not air conditioning, not cold. I moved with my notebook, my pen case with a bunch of keychains, and my cup of milk tea. I did it all in one go. I sat down in a new chair, then opened my notebook again. I scribbled my thoughts and sank into silence. The series of mysterious deaths. God, can we just have some nice, pleasant music for once, please? Dubbed The Curse of Oishiro-sama. I've been viewing each incident as a separate case, even though it was followed by another one. I've never looked at all the cases as part of one big scheme. I just don't think it is. I don't think it is one big scheme at all. After I wrote down all the incidents on paper, it became clear to me that all of them served the same agenda. I wrote down the victims. The first year, the construction site manager. Okay. They all serve the same agenda. Do they, or do the Sonozakis manipulate the situation and cover them all up in a way that makes them appear to serve the same agenda? And they use the fact that people view it in that way as a way to, like, maintain power and, like, you know, indirectly threaten people of this, right? Again, it's just like what Oryu said, what Tanagashi said, like, you know, so wryly that it's like, if anyone who fears Oishiro-sama wouldn't miss the festival or whatever, right? It's almost like this fear of Oishiro-sama is really fear of the Sonozakis, you know? God, this music is gonna fucking drive me insane. Like, I'm gonna start going crazy. The first year, the construction site manager. The second year, Sashiku's parents. The third year, the priest. The fourth year, Sashiku's aunt. So here's the problem. Sashiku's aunt, we know it has nothing to do with this. We know there was an outside reason for it, right? It's like, okay. Here's what I'm trying to think. If Sachiku's aunt could be excused as both we know there's an explanation for it beyond being like an enemy of the village or whatever, right? It being some kind of scheme like that, you know. We know that's not part of it, and that's not why. What about the previous ones? Okay, what I need to use my words. Like, is it all just a giant crazy coincidence that every murder has in some way been an enemy of the village? Or are we thinking about it the wrong way, and any murder that ever happens could in some way be twisted and thought of to be a murder that is an enemy of the village, right? You know what I mean? Because think about this, right? Rika's parents, the only reason they are thought of as enemies of the village, I guess, in my mind at least, is because they were murdered and people wanted to fit it into that category, right? Like, yes, they have justifications for it, and they say that Rika's parents, that Rika's father, I guess more specifically, like, wasn't harsh enough on the Hojos or whatever, wasn't harsh enough on the people who supported the dam, all of this, you know, all the stuff Mion said, right? But that feels like a very flimsy justification, because before his death, before the deaths of Rika's parents, they were members of the three families who were very much entrenched in the village, right? So, like, let's say there's a guy who hated Rika's father, right? And, you know, he wanted to kill him. He was his worst enemy. He bullied him in high school. He hated him, right? If that guy had been the person who died that year instead of Rika's parents, they could use the same reasoning and say that that person was an enemy of the village who died because of the curse. Because they were an enemy of, you know, one of the three families, Rika's parents, the Furude family, blah, 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 right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I feel like if they stretch for it, they could always come up with a reason for why the murder is an enemy of the village that was, you know, blah, 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 right? Because no one's perfect, right? They could always say something like that, you know? And I guess the reason why that's important to me is because we need an explanation for why it is always an enemy of the village, other than it just being a crazy coincidence every time. Or it all being some big interconnected scheme, right? Because I guess I don't believe in either of those, right? Okay, I hope that makes any sense. For the fourth year, one could consider Sachikun himself to be the victim, rather than his aunt. If I consider that each case arose from the grudge over the dam conflict, it's quite simple. In the first year, I guess, like... What about, like, the previous murders, right? What about Sadako's parents? Or I guess, Oishi even kind of said it, right? He said it in Chapter 1, that it's this idea that the bar for the enemy of the village is getting lower and lower and lower every time, right? So much so that, like, in the fifth year, right, which I guess we know is Takano doing it, it's Tomatake, just for, like, no fucking reason at all, right? Or any of the murders that Keiichi killing Teppei, Keiichi killing Mion and Rena, Shion killing everyone in Chapter 2, you know, whatever you want to say, it's like, it's all just, it's not because they're enemies of the village at all. And I just feel like the previous ones are like that too, right? Like, it's just, I don't know. In the first year, the construction manager was killed because it was a symbol of the dam construction itself. Of course, the real enemy was the Ministry of Construction, but it wasn't his clear target. That manager, on the other hand, had been aggressively shouting back at the villagers, so he was a more appropriate enemy to attack. If Oishiro-sama had really cursed someone, it would have been the officials from the ministry. It's apparent that the target was selected based on the villagers' preference. The second year, the accidental death of Sachiku's parents. It's said that they fell from a cliff in some park, but it's doubtful that it was really an accident. His parents were labeled as traitors to the village because they sided with the dam construction, even though they were also from Hinamizawa. The Hojo family was ostracized during the dam conflict in order to prevent further pro-dam activists from rising up. I have no explanation for the Hojo parents' deaths at all, right? I don't know. I really don't know. Not really the first one either, the construction site manager. We know that Oishi was his buddy. Like, could the construction site manager himself have been the one who went crazy? And was affected by the crazy shit? Like, maybe, because we know he was under a ton of stress all the time. He was being screamed at by the villagers all day, every day, and he was in an incredible, horrible, stressful situation, which I could imagine fulfilling the crazy shit that makes you go crazy, like, criteria. But I guess I just don't know. That means that the Hojos were necessary during the conflict to play the role of the traitor. So, when the conflict was over, they no longer served any purpose. The construction site manager was a symbol of the external enemy. The Hojos were a symbol of the internal enemy. Oh god. These people fell victim to the curse, and it seemed that the grudge over the dam conflict had ended. We're going through like the like line of thinking of like fascism. Like we need the enemy from within. Like, dear god. I guess it kind of fits, right? I think it kind of makes sense. I think it is the way the Sonozakis kind of view themselves and the way they view the village and like their position in it is kind of in that vein, I believe. Yet those incidents were followed by another one. The third year, the leader of one of the three families, the priest Furude, suddenly died of an illness with an unknown cause. And this is the one that fits the least for me, because if he hadn't died, I don't think anyone would be thinking of him as an enemy of the village. I mean, maybe what I'm saying is a bunch of nonsense. Maybe he was actually, maybe everyone thought he was a complete loser, and everyone thought of him as an enemy of the village. I guess I just, like, maybe, I don't know. His wife drowned herself on the same night. She seemed to have left a note that said she was sacrificing herself to pacify Ushiro-sama's anger. No explanation for their actual deaths either, like why they would die, no explanation at all. No idea who killed them, no idea if anyone killed them, no idea if one of them went insane, no clue. Whether it was a fatal disease or suicide, their deaths looked suspicious. Of course, again, it's like we know Oishi visited one of them, right? Or no, that was I always forget this detail, if it was Oishi who visited one of them or not. I feel like I wrote it down at some point, but I have like 10 pages of notes, so like I don't even know. Whether it was a fatal disease or suicide, their deaths looked suspicious. Mion admitted that the Sonozaki family didn't like the priest's attitude. They didn't like how the priest had been generous toward the pro-dam activists. The priest wasn't quite a traitor, but he was certainly uncooperative. Looking at these incidents, I realized that the curse was performed based on the degree of hostility. God. Enemy, traitor, and dissident. This meant that the curse was actually payment. It was a punishment for the criminals of war. In the fourth year, I didn't understand this case at first, to be honest. Oh god, this is going to lead her down a line of thinking where she is going to think that she herself should be the target, right? Which is bad. At first, I believed that this case was separate from the other ones, even though it occurred on the same day. Exactly, right? I never thought that there would be any relation to the other three. But when I wrote it down and looked at it objectively, the victim is a relative of a traitor. After enemy, traitor, and dissident, relative of a traitor doesn't sound too odd. It comes naturally as a fourth target. On the day the villagers worship Oishiro-sama, their guardian deity, the criminals of the dam conflict have been punished by the curse. Just like how I was forced to pay at the Sonozaki house, the criminals were made to pay as well. After writing these things out, I started thinking that the fourth incident might be in line with the series of mysterious deaths after all. Whether it was Sachi-kun or the dope head, it seemed that they were forced to play the role of a murderer, as a part of a bigger scenario. Even if Sachi-kun was the real culprit, even if he killed his aunt because of an ordinary grudge, the murder seems synchronized with the grand scheme of the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa, which is a payment plan for the war criminals. Their murder was the result of his pain. But what if somebody planned that as part of a scenario? For instance, somebody might have suggested to Kim to kill his aunt on that day, that night, at that place. I had no doubts that Sachi-kun decided to kill her in order to protect Sadaka. But did he really reach that conclusion on his own? Sachi-kun was optimistic and somewhat detached, as far as I know. Would he really have considered murdering his aunt, even if it was to protect his sister? Under the influence of the crazy shit, I think he would, right? And, like, sure, he seems optimistic and detached, but everyone has a breaking point, right? Like, I guess I just don't buy that he's, like, this perfect guy that Shion views him as, right? I just don't know. I don't know what to think about this. Couldn't it be possible for somebody to have chosen the aunt as the fourth year's murder beforehand? And they used Sachi-kun? and Sachi-kun was eliminated because of his connection with them. Looking at it that way, the murder of the first year resembles this case. The main culprit being behind that case hasn't been found yet, dead or alive. The other culprits testified that their fight had turned into a slaughter. But wouldn't it be possible that the main culprit had manipulated the situation? What if he had been told to kill someone on that day, at that time, and in that place? I'm certain. The first murder resembles Sachi-kun's case very much. I still don't know what they mean by the main culprit, but I guess. I guess my line of thinking with this is different. I guess I just think that just the same way that Keiichi has always ended up killing on the night of Watanagashi or very close to it with Mion and Rena. Like in chapter 3, right, Keiichi killing Teppei, he did it on Watanagashi because the murders are always done on Watanagashi, right? So it just makes sense for it to have happened then, right? For him to have done it then, you know? Let alone the fact that it's like, if we were viewing the crazy shit that makes you go crazy angle, too. Watanagashi is so much part of the crazy paranoia and all of this because of the culture around it, that it makes sense that it would almost reach a breaking point and reach a peak on Watanagashi as well, and that would lead to murder happening on that night, right? Because it's like, and in this case with Sachi, it's like you could think he had a very similar reason to having done it on Watanagashi as Keiichi did in chapter 3, right? Which is just, no one's gonna be around, it's gonna be easy to get away with it then, you know, all this stuff, you know? Assuming Sachi was even of the right mind and all to think like that, but he didn't seem as far gone as Keiichi in chapter 1 after he killed Mion and Rena, right? He seemed to be more similarly in a headspace as like Keiichi in chapter 3. And I don't think this is like a cop-out. I don't think this is like accepting that it's all some crazy coincidence. I think there's a reason it happens on Watanagashi that isn't just crazy coincidence and also isn't just, it's all a specific scheme to always have it happen on that day, right? But am I dismissing that too easily? Do I have a reason to dismiss that? To dismiss the idea that it's all a big scheme? Well, yeah, I guess my only reasoning for thinking it's not all a big scheme is because we know there's so many murders that aren't part of the scheme, which is Sachi's case here, even though Shion's saying she thinks it's part of the scheme, I don't think it is. Everything that Keiichi's done with his murders, Shion in chapter 2, Takano every year on the 5th year, she doesn't have anything to do with the Sonozaki's. I guess as far as we know, I guess she could. It just certainly doesn't seem like it, right? So, did that mean Sachi-kun was being controlled by somebody else? Oishi had presented me with a hypothesis that the Sonozaki family made Sachi-kun disappear in order to end my relationship with a murderer. But when I read the notes I wrote down, his disappearance didn't seem too spontaneous. It seemed like part of a bigger plan. Since I unexpectedly gotten involved in that plan, I had to be separated from it. Then Sachi-kun was demoned away, as planned. At first, I also believed that the Sonozaki family made him disappear because they didn't like that I was in love with a member of a family of traitors. But something didn't add up. Something felt strange. I wasn't the reason for his disappearance, after all. Even if I never met him in the first place, Sachi-kun was supposed to kill his aunt on June 1982 and then disappear. Or Satoshi killed his aunt on June 1982 for different reasons, and then that gives the Sonozakis maybe not reason to make him disappear, because I don't think they made him disappear either, honestly. I can imagine it, but I also don't think it was them, really. It gives them motivation to want to cover it up, though, to make it look like it was them who did it, almost, right? Because they want people to think it was them, because they use the fear of Oyashiro-sama and the whole culture around that for their own benefit, right? That makes sense to me, right? At one point, I'd been thinking of taking revenge on the hag. I believed that she separated us. But what if my relationship with Sachi-kun had nothing to do with his disappearance? What would that mean? Who made Sachi-kun disappear? I need to understand the series of mysterious deaths in order to solve this mystery. What did all of these deaths mean? Who is behind them, and what purpose did they serve? I wanted to know the purpose, the motive, and who was responsible. Who took Sachi-kun? I wanted to know if he was still alive. The series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa is also called Oyashiro-sama's curse. What is that curse? Specifically, what kind of god is Oishiro-sama? What blessings does he bring, and what punishments does he dole out? I guess, like, I feel like Shion... What it feels like to me right now is that Shion is desperately trying to find an explanation for what happened. Just because she wants an explanation, right? It's so hard to continue living your life not having a reason for all of this happening, right? Makes me think of, like, Rena and Keiichi's conversation in Chapter 3 about, like, what would you do if everything was horribly, irrevocably ruined tomorrow, right? It's like Shion's going through that right now, right? Sachi's disappearance. So of course she wants an explanation that makes sense so badly. She wants some kind of reason. She wants to hold someone responsible for it, essentially, you know? It's part of, like, a coping mechanism for something having gone horribly wrong in her life, right? So it's like, I guess I just feel that her desire to see that there is, like, a great conspiracy here, that it is all part of some grand scheme, feels like... I don't know. Would you say that it in any way goes against, like, Rena's like, philosophy there? This idea of, like, you know, living your life with the knowledge of that always being possible, right? It's almost like it's almost like some kind of defiance of that in a way, I suppose. So desperately trying to find, like, an answer like this. And that sounds silly, because it's like, it's not like trying to find an answer is, like, a bad thing to do, I guess, right? I guess she's not going as far as Keiichi did in Chapter 3, like his whole, you know, returning to his ordinary days thing, you know? She's not really doing that. I guess. I mean, she certainly wants Satoshi back, right? I'm just trying to think if in any way you could say that the idea that there is some kind of greater scheme about this goes against, like, the thematic message of the story, right? But I guess I'm just not sure. It would really depend on what form it takes, you know? Because I guess my problem with Rena's, like, whole thing about, you know, what would you do if a volcano erupted tomorrow, blah, 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 is, like, that takes away agency in a way, right? Like, it's like, that feels like a very depressing way to think about things. The idea that everything could be ruined tomorrow and there's nothing you could do about it. Because I want to say that there's almost always something you can do to make a situation better, right? And maybe, but I guess not everything's in your control, right? Like, you know, sometimes you are truly powerless. That's kind of what Chapter 3 is all about. I don't know. I think everything I just said meant nothing and made no sense. I wrote down my thoughts in the notebook. What's Oishiro-sama? What is he? I scribbled these things down. I was so absorbed by it that I didn't realize somebody had been standing behind me, watching me the whole time. Who is it gonna be? I couldn't stop myself from gasping when I realized that. Oh, okay. What's up, Takano? Oh, God. Right. No. Right. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting.
驚かせちゃったかしら?
You sure did. The intelligent-looking woman giggled.
いえ、びっくりしただけです。こちらこそ場違いな大声を出してすみませんでした。
She could have apologized a little better, too, since she'd been watching me from behind. But she just stared at my face instead.
あなたが園崎紫音さん。
Oh, she knows her.
私の名前を知ってて、私が初対面ということは、
Yeah.
お姉の知り合いか何かですか?
Is this immediately gonna change everything I think about Takano about her connection to the Sonozakis? Like, being twins is a pain sometimes. People you've never met can tell exactly who you are. Interesting. True,
ごめん
actually.
なさいね。私の知っている園崎さんは図書館なんかに来るような人じゃないから。噂に聞いた
God,
双
why
子
would
の
he...
シオンさんかなと思って。
What? No. I guess we know that Mion, like, knew Takano, right? I mean... She's around Hinamizawa. Like, she lives in Hinamizawa, right? Like, I mean, yeah, of course Mion knows Takano. I don't know if that means anything in terms of any potential connection to the Sonozakis, other than perhaps through Eri, because she works at the same place. The woman giggled
お
again.
察しの通り、私は園崎紫音です。どうもはじめまして。こんに失礼ですがどちら様ですか?
Takano Mio.
ごめんなさいね。自己紹介がまだだったわね。
She seemed to love her own hair, because she kept running her fingers through it boastfully.
高野美代。美代って呼んでくれていいわよ。シオンちゃん。
Very
お気
familiar,
遣い
huh?
ありがとうございます。高野さん。
Immediately calls her Takano-san. Her condescending attitude bugged me. No kidding, huh? I hate meeting people like that. Somehow she's less infuriating to me than Oishi, like for real though, just in terms of her attitude. I closed my notebook and got ready to leave the desk. They're similar though, I suppose.
怒ってる？ご検察、痛み入ります。私は一人で考え事をするのが好きなんで、よそへ行かせていただきます。失礼します。ごきげんよう。残念ね。私たち話が合うと思ったのに。
Was she reading her notes, maybe?
そうですか？私は合うとは思いかねますが。だってお社様のたたりについて研究する同志に出会えたんですもの。貴重な出会いだと思うんだけど。
She saw my notes. My face reddened.
これは私のそう妄想みたいなもの。でたらめです。子供の落書きなんかほっといてください。お社様のたたりと呼ばれる一連の連続開始事件。いずれの事件も個別に見えながら確実に一つの意思に基づいて行われている。
Maybe.
毎年一人がお社様のたたりにあって死に、一人何を急に言い出すんですか？一人がたたりで死んで、
Sacrificed.
何ですって？
What's interesting though is because of Takano faking her own death every year and killing Tomitake, it's like she clearly doesn't. She knows this isn't true, right? So like, what are her thoughts on it, right? I just don't know. I just don't know. Like, she told Keiichi in Chapter 3 that she thinks it's the Sonozakis. I just don't believe her, though. I just don't believe her. Because it's like, if she thought this was true, if she thought there really was a curse and a sacrifice every year, it was the village doing it, why would she fake it, right? Why would she do it herself in the next year, right? Like, that doesn't... Why would... I don't know. Unless maybe that's part of her plan, right? Maybe she wants to see how the Sonozakis react to her killing Tomitake and faking her own disappearance, right? She wants to see what the Sonozakis do after that, right? It's just, again, that's fucking crazy, right? She has to kill Tomitake? Like, that's insane, you know? Like, I was taken aback by her weird spiel. Like, maybe she has similar thoughts on it to me, I guess, is what I'm saying. Is that she thinks the Sonozakis aren't actually responsible, but they're, like, acting like they are, almost, right? So she wants to stage this murder that she knows the Sonozakis have nothing to do with, because she did it, and see how the Sonozakis react afterwards, right? But that's just crazy. That doesn't make any sense, right? That can't be it. I realized right away that she said something extraordinary.
南沢村連続開始事件の犠牲者が常に偶数人数だってことはあなたも気づいてたんじゃない？
Of course.
それともまだそこまでには至ってなかったかしら？
Shut up. The number of victims is always even. I was confused, but I tried to figure out what that meant. Except that's literally just not true. Actually, no, I guess it is. I was gonna say, like, I guess. It just depends how you define victim. I guess. The dam construction manager died in the first year, and then the main culprit disappeared. There was only one victim. In the second year, the victims were the parents of Sachi-kun, so it was 2 people. In the third year, it was the priest, and if her death was also planned, his wife, to begin. And in this year, the 4th year, Sachi-kun's aunt died, and Sachi-kun went missing. If Sachi-kun's disappearance was planned, the number of the victims was 2. It's true. Except for the first one, the victims always came in an even number, 2. Wait, I just concluded myself that the first case resembled the 4th one. The main culprit was still missing. He might have been demoned away, just like Sachi-kun.
ね、そうでしょ?
Takano-san sounded like a teacher who would show me how to solve a difficult math problem. I wasn't quite convinced, but I couldn't deny what she'd said, either.
ヒントはこのくらいでいいかしら？二人で存分に語り明かしたかったんだけど、あなたが孤独を好むなら仕方がないしね。失礼な口の聞き方をしてすみませんでした、ミオさん。私のことはシオンと呼んでください。
She's interested now, I guess. She seemed content that I changed my attitude. She kept giggling for a while. She didn't seem that reliable. I didn't want to be acquainted with her for too long. But I don't get to talk to people very much. No kidding. God, you need some fucking friends, Shion. Please. And what she said interested me. I guess she can't because of the fucking stupid shit with the Sonozakis.
ミオって呼んでくれると嬉しいわ。よろしくです、ミオさん。私は園崎シオン。ミオンの双子の妹にあたります。シオンと呼んでください。
I took the hand that Mio-san held out as a sign of reconciliation.
さっきの話を聞かせてください。二人犠牲者が出ると言いましたね。一人がたたりで、もう一人が生贄とかねえ、シオンちゃん。この話で盛り上がる前に。
Well, complicated. A little bit complicated. She leaned over and looked into my eyes. It was kind of uncomfortable. Obviously, if Takano does actually think the Sonozakis are doing something, then it would be very interesting to get to talk to Shion, right? Yeah, I'm sure you don't know much.
最近沖宮に戻ってきたとしか知らないわよ。そうですか。じゃあ想像つきますよね。私がいない間に起こった連続開始事件。私はよくわからないので調べてるんです。ちょっとした興味本位で。なるほどね。興味本位でね。
I got the impression that she knew about what happened to Sachi-kun and me, because she instantly recognized me as Shion, not Mio. I didn't know why I thought that way, as she shouldn't have access to the sources that, for instance, Oishi does. Yeah, how does she, right? How does she know? Unless it's through Eri, right? Unless it's through Eri. Like, maybe. I just don't know. Here's the thing about Takano and Eri, right? Is, like, we have never seen them interact. All we know is that Eri and Takano work at the same place, right? Which just makes me want to say that in some way there's a connection there in terms of like this like stuff involving all this stuff too. What other, how else would she know anything though, right? Because I guess I just don't imagine Mio and anyone telling her stuff, that would be weird. I don't know. It was just the look in her eyes that made me think that way.
さっき私のことをお社様のたたりについて調べる同志と言いましたね。なぜたたりなんか研究してるんですか？そして連続開始事件の犠牲者は偶数人であることも言い切りましたね。
I bet she's not gonna answer that first question.
ひなみ沢連続開始事件は確かに通称でお社様のたたりと呼ばれています。なぜたたりを研究すると連続開始事件にまで踏み込むことになるのですか？シオンちゃん。
Yeah, she's just not gonna answer. She's not gonna answer. God, I wish I knew why.
それに何が聞きたいのか、ややこしくて分かりにくい
わ。Oh, I couldn't say anything in return. Maybe I'd been too inquisitive.
順に答えるわね。私が研究しているのはたたりじゃなく、もっと
Right.
鬼ヶ淵村の風俗史よ。
I guess.
古代ひなみ沢村の知られざる歴史。
We don't really know why
研究しているの。
She's so interested in it though.
鬼ヶ淵村？鬼ヶ淵って鬼の国につながってるっていう村の奥にある底なし沼のことですか？
The village of demons.
知られざる歴史、暗黒史って何です？
I kept asking questions. Mio-san, however, looked pleased to hear them.
鬼ヶ淵村というのはひなみ沢村の明治以前の名前よ。暗黒史というのは人食い鬼の歴史は。
Sure. Ah, the man-eating demons, huh? There was a fairy tale told in Hinamizawa. A long time ago, demons came out of the swamp, and while the villagers battled with them, they ended up living peacefully together. The villagers transcended and became a sacred people, having demon blood in their veins. That long-forgotten fairy tale came back to my mind vividly. hinamizawaに縁のある人なら、誰もが知ってる当たり前の昔話よね。And a member of the Sonozakis, right?
その半人半鬼の仙人たちが時に山を降り。何の話ですか？
Oh god, Shion has some cannibal-related trauma with the canned flesh story.
村人たちの体に半分流れる鬼の血は、鬼は鬼でも 人食い鬼の血だったって話は聞いたことない？ああ、まあそんな話もありますね。
I dodged the question. Hinamizawa used to be a desolate village, but it grew in prominence after the Second World War and expanded its influence to Okinomi and other areas. The people who disliked and discriminated against the villagers called us man-eating demons. I remember that. The young villagers don't take it seriously, but the older people can get seriously upset about it. They certainly can't take it as a joke. So, the term man-eating demons is forbidden. We normally never use it. Even during my rebellious phase, I never spoke those words. Mio-san, however, seemed to have no qualms with saying it out loud.
気に障った？何がですか？人食い鬼って単語を意味嫌う村人は多いからね。
God, what's the phrase exactly in, like, Japanese?
村人たちの体に半分流れる鬼の血は、鬼は鬼でも人食い鬼の血だったって話は聞いたことない？
Hito something. People, man-eating. I don't know what the word for eating. Hito something oni. I don't know.
気に障ったなら謝るけれど。年寄り連中は気にするらしいですけど、まあ私はそんなには気にしてませんので、それより続けてください。
Please do.
じゃあ続けるわね。古代の村人たちにはね。
Right,
一つとし
right.
てその食人の儀式を様式化し、
Of course,
さま
I
ざま
mean,
なセレモニーや文化、
I don't want
風
to
習を
doubt
生み出したと言
Takano.
われている。
We don't have any source for any of this crazy shit about cannibalism and Tanagashi and all of this other than her. I guess all the torture stuff does exist in the Saiguden, so like I guess that's evidence enough, right, of the dark history. And I guess it's like it doesn't matter if it's true, I
祭りだ
suppose.
と思っている綿流しだって、本来はちょっと早い夏祭りなんかでは断じてない。本来は犠牲者をさらい、食べるために行う食人の
But
宴だ。
Tanagashi.
彼らはね、犠牲者を高速台に縛り付け、お魚を下ろす時みたいに腹渡を引きずり出して、それを川に投げ捨てたとされている。ほら、魚の腹渡って、それが語源よ。綿流しの。
God, she sounds so excited. She sounds so happy, so excited to be sharing this, you know?
お布団の綿なんかでごまかすようになったのは、私の研究では明治の頃からじゃないかと思うわね。まさかこの昭和の時代にそんな恐ろしいことが堂々とできるわけもないのだし。
Everything Mio-san was talking about sounded startling. I was just taken aback. I couldn't wholly believe it right away. She sensed that from my expression.
もちろん思いつきなでっち上げなんかでは断じてない。
Yeah, I guess I believe
誰に
you.
も見せないって誓うなら、綿流しのあたりの研究ノートを見せてあげてもいいけれど。
This is also very interesting because this is all a bunch of stuff that Takano told them in the Saiguden in Chapter 2. And Shion already experienced this as far as we know before then, right? Unless this is somehow part of the timeline that changes. I just don't think so though, right? Mio-san took out a notebook from her bag and flipped through it. She appeared to be doing her research thoroughly.
ありがとうございます。お借りできるものなら、
They're both
後
starting
でゆっくり読ん
notebooks.
でみたいと思います。
That is interesting. We know Takano has quite the notebook, and so does Shion.
いいわよ。本当は閲覧厳禁の秘密ノートだけれどね。研究の同志になら特別に見せてあげてもいいわね。
Mio-san handed me the notebook a bit hesitantly. It looked like it'd take a whole night to finish reading. It was densely packed with information. I saw copies of various documents and quotes in there too. It wasn't just some delusion of hers.
一番最初にミオさんは言いましたよね。毎年の事件で一人がたたりで死に、一人が生贄にされて失踪すると。
The question, I suppose, is sacrificed by who? Right? If this story is correct, you know. A person is sacrificed and disappears. Sachikun had gone missing. Did he become a sacrifice? Of course, like, I don't believe this in the sacrifice, right? I just think, you know, like, what is a sacrifice anyway? Mio-san looked pleased to hear my questions again. She took out another notebook and handed it to me.
読めばわかるけど、かいつまんで話すわね。お社様のたたりとは、簡単に言えば、お社様の怒りのこと。
And you gotta sink down into the
お
swamp,
社
right?
様が怒
Yeah,
った
yeah.
ら、罰としてたたりが起こる。それはわかるわよね。一応わかります。ダム戦争で村に敵対した人間たちにお社様が怒り、
Mhm,
たたり
mhm.
が起こったと。そうね。でね、 お社様のたたりというのは放置してはいけないの。もっともっと大きなたたりを招くからね。だから神職である古出家の歴代当主たちはお社様のたたりがあるたびにそのお怒りを鎮めるために生贄を捧げる必要があったの。それを生贄の儀と呼ぶみたいなんだけどね。じゃあつまり毎年綿流しの日にお社様のたたりで一人死んで、そのたたりを鎮めるためにさらにもう一人を生贄にして殺してると、そういうんですか？
As the story goes, I suppose.
一人しか死んでませんよ、現実に。生贄に捧げられたなんて聞いたこともない。死体が出ないのは当然よ。だって生贄の儀式
But again, it's like she... Takano can't believe this, right? There's no way she actually believes this because of what she herself does in the 5th year, right? So I don't know.
一度沈めば二度と浮き上がることはないと言われる底なしの沼。死体なんて出ようはずもない。じゃあ毎年のもう一人の犠牲者はみんな沼の底に沈んでると？
I don't think anyone has ever been thrown into the swamp. Like, is that just me? I don't think anyone's in there. I don't think the swamp is anything. Does that mean Sachi-kun is also at the bottom of that dark green swamp?
さあ、本当に沼の底に沈められているかはわからない。
Like, like there's the tar pit, right, down below the Sonozaki torture room, you know, but I don't think anyone's really down there either, other than, like, the enemies of the Yakuza, the Sonozakis, right? It's just completely separate, I think, from, like, the curse
それを意
members.
識して一人を消していることは間違いないと思うわね。
Each year, a traitor to the village dies on the day of Utanagashi because of Oishiro-sama's curse, and another person is sacrificed in order to pacify Oishiro-sama's anger. That person's body will never be found because he or she is supposedly thrown into the bottomless swamp.
そう、つまり木南沢村連続開始事件というのはたたりとそれを鎮めるための生贄の2つでセットになったもの。そしてそれを毎年繰り返すことによってダム戦争時の旧敵を毎年2人ずつ殺していけるシステムのことを指しているの。私の話は省略しすぎてるからね。多分ちょっと信じがたいとは思う。だからこそあなたに預けた研究ノートをね。
Please do, and tell me everything that you read in it, please.
私の話がそういい加減なものでもないことがわかるはず。
I heard a man's voice just then. A middle-aged man with a hat was waving at Mio-san from the entrance. What's up, Tomitake?
ごめんなさい。待ち人が来たみたい。もっとゆっくり話がしたかったのに。でも機会はまだこれからもあるでしょうし、ね。
I'm assuming it's Tomitake, I guess.
そのノートはそれまで預けておくわね。中身をよく読んで理解できたなら、私のいい話し相手になってくれるのを
Man, she's really
楽し
leaving him
み
with
にしてい
Shion.
るわね。
That's crazy that she's willing to do that. Mio-san wrapped up the conversation and headed to where the man was waiting for her. She left her old notebook in my hands. Mio-san waved at me as she left the library with her companion. I took a seat again and opened what she'd given me. What bugged me was the series of mysterious deaths, also known as the Curse of Oishiro-sama. Maybe I'd be able to get closer to the truth by reading these notebooks. If I studied them carefully, I might be able to find out who was really behind the incidents. Why did Sachi-kun have to disappear? What was he involved in? How did that happen? Maybe Takano's notes would bring me the answer. Research notes. Mio Takano. I started flipping the pages, this time making sure that no one was watching over my shoulder. Every time I see the evening sky like that, it makes me miss that, that track that played in, like, the old chapters, the, what was it called, like, orange-colored theme or something, you know? It was time for the library to close. I had to leave. I bought some food on my way home. I hope she talks to us about what she read in the notes. I shut my door and locked it right away. Then, I heard the door of the neighboring apartment open. Kasai lived next door, yeah. Nobody else lived on this floor of the nearly empty apartment building anyway. God, it must be creepy. I clearly heard the door open and close. Kasai must have noticed that I came home, and was coming over because he wanted to talk to me. I unlocked the door and shouted out to him. God, what if it's not? What if, like, I'm scared. Oh, fuck. Okay, it's Mion. Okay. That voice. I twitched.
どうぞ、おね。
Yeah. The door slowly opens. My alter ego, Mion Sonozaki, appeared. My alter ego, huh? She's holding a box of cake while smiling timidly. Yeah, how... God, I'm so fucking...
どうぞ上がってって言うまで玄関に突っ立ってるつもりで
I
すか
just... It pisses me off so much. It just pisses me off so much. It's not Mion's fault. It's not Mion's fault, and I know that. I just can't... I don't know.
どうぞ上がって。全然可愛くない部屋で申し訳ないけどね。落ち着いた雰囲気のとこだね。
Sis looked a bit tense when entering my room. It was her first time here.
生活はどう
Terrible.
新しい学校はやっぱりつまらないです。一応通ってはいますけど、気分が乗らないときはサボらせてもらってます。
Yeah.
全寮制だとなかなかそうはいかないですからね。センルチはやっぱり辛かったが。
Sure was.
チェ、お姉も一度閉じ込められてみろってんです。ごめん。ケーキ買ってきたからさ、食べよ。
Mion opened the box. I saw 2 cheesecakes there. We have the same taste in food, so we don't have to fight if we get 2 of the same thing. I chatted with her over the cheesecake. I talked to her about school and whatnot.
必要な家具とかがあったら言ってね。
It's just so sad. I don't know. Like, I guess again, it's just there's nothing either of them can do about the situation, I guess, right? It's just I don't know. I just
融通できるかもしれないから。この部屋にもようやく馴染んできたとこだけど、近いうちに引き払うかもしれない
might
から。
move out. Can't blame
家具
her.
はノーサンキューです。
It is so linked to the Sonozakis for one thing, right?
うちのお父さんが沖宮に住むつもりなら戻ってこいってうるさいんですよ。お父さんに会いたくないんだけど、かといって逆らうのも怖いしな。
Interesting.
お父さんもシオンがいなくなって寂しそうだったから、なんだかんだ言っても帰ってきたら喜ぶと思うよ。チェー、人事だと思って。
It is interesting. I wonder what their dad is like. Because we know he's someone really high up in like the Yakuza stuff, right? But it's so interesting how that is at the same time very separate from like the Sonozaki stuff. You know, how it just seems like someone who has this attitude of being a Yakuza boss and all of this, you know, wouldn't be someone who would be so like conciliatory to all this weird Sonozaki Hinamizawa stuff, you know. But I guess they're like linked, of course, you know. Because he married into the family, right? He married Akane, right? Their mother. I don't know. That's weird to me. I guess I would just imagine in my mind who'd be a very like domineering person, you know. Come to think of it, this was the first time I talked to Sis since I was allowed to live as she and Sonozaki. Yeah. She didn't look like how she was at the Sonozaki house that day. Of course not, but the successor of the Sonozaki family and my twin sister are 2 different people. Unfortunately, they aren't. Unfortunately, they aren't. You know, they just aren't. They just aren't. Right? Like, the demon lives inside the leader of the Sonozakis. Our bodies are exactly the same, except for the tattoo of the demon on her back. Yeah. Mion's destiny as the successor was set in stone when she got that tattoo. It's pretty simple. The Mion from that night was different from the Mion before me. I guess that's what she has to tell herself, right? To be able to cope with it at all, you know? Mion, I think, tells herself the same thing, of course, right? When I was forced to tear off my fingernails, I'd momentarily despised her. But if I were the next leader of the family, I'd have done the same. And yeah, and that's what I mean, is it's like, in a sense, there is a powerlessness about this position that is forced on Mion in a way, right? That Shion would be experiencing too, right? That doesn't mean that they aren't in any way responsible for like what they do, you know. But I guess I don't think it's Mion's fault in a sense.
爪は治った。もうすっかり傷口は塞がったからね。
Because it's just, both of them feel equally powerless in the situation, right? Both of them think there's nothing that they can do, and in a way that's true, right? Like,
最近は目立つのがかえって嫌なんで、包帯みたいなのもしてないです。でもまだだいぶいびつでね、あまり人には見せられないかな。
Yeah, I sneered at her, displaying my incomplete fingernails. Mion grew quiet and looked down.
謝らなくていいよ。ミオンだって、あそこは仕方なかったんだ
Did
か
what you
ら
had
さ。
to do, yeah,
次期
yeah.
当主の役割を演じただけ。
It's just crazy how she justifies it like that, right? Not that I'm saying she should blame Mion, but just that she views it just as an unchangeable system. That it's like that she views it as she herself having like gotten what she deserved, right? Like that's crazy, you know, crazy.
恨んじゃないから。ごめんね。
It's not that I want her to hold a grudge against Mion. I want her to hold a grudge against the Sonozakis and the system that's put in place here, you know?
オッケー。その謝罪で私は全部チャラにした。
God, I want her to be mad, right? I want her to be mad and not accept it, you know? Not because I want her to be mad at Mion, I want her to be mad at the situation, right? Even though it's like she's gone through that, right? She has gone through that. It's like in her mind, she thinks she's past that. She thinks that's pointless, that won't do anything, you know, that it's unchangeable.
でも、もう一度謝ったらそれは取り消し。一生許さないよ。
Of course, right? Yeah. It's like she doesn't even want to face it, right? Yeah.
お姉は一度謝りモードに入るとなかなか抜けられない悪い癖がありますからね。私の方で区切らないと気がないんです。
So interesting, so sad, really, that this is her attitude about it. Because it's almost like it has to come from a place of like not wanting even to acknowledge or think about the possibility of her actually being wronged in some way that even requires an apology, right? Because then that opens the door for the idea that the system itself would actually need to change. And that's what Shion's been beaten down for her entire life to never think or, like, even imagine as a possibility, right? Like...
本当に許してくれるの？サトシとのことも。
Oh, God. My heart ached when she mentioned his name. It felt just like the ache of an old wind.
シオンがサトシのことを好きなのは、あれだけ大勢の前で熱愛宣言しちゃいましたからね。なんだか今さら恥ずかしくもなんともないや。でもバッチャはあれで本当にけじめがついたと思ってるんだよ。
Pisses me off so
シオンが
much.
ちゃんと自分でけじめをつけて見せたから、それで全部終わりって。
How great. Awesome. Fantastic. She atoned. Yeah.
あれだけ痛い思いしたんですから。
Won't go to waste.
サトシ、どこに行ったんだろうね。
It's yeah, like oh God, man, fuck. I started choking when I heard her say that. I just said it to her myself. I said that I'd forgiven her completely, but that promise instantly evaporated. Just because of what she said, I felt like I turned into a completely different person. What did you just say, Mion? Did you say, I wonder where Sashiki-kun disappeared to? Who else would know other than you and your folks? What did you say? Where did he go? I felt my eyeballs reddening in anger. I felt they were about to pop. Good! Please, be angry, be mad. Even though I don't think it was them who made him disappear, I still want her to be mad at the Sonozakis. Like, please, anything, please. I choked on a burning sensation in my throat. Mion's expression rapidly changed. It looked like she noticed the devil's mask on my face. We were one and the same. We could understand each other's thoughts without voicing them. No, unfortunately, you aren't. The sharing our expressions was like unveiling everything in our hearts to the other.
ごめん。
She apologized again. Even though I told her not to apologize anymore, Mion apologized. Oh, fuck. I felt like strangling her. I was going to make her confess what she'd hid Sashiki-kun. If she told me she threw him into the Onigachi swamp, I'd strangle her to death right then and there.
サトシのことは本当に知らない
Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, that's a lie.
本当。バッチャだって何も知らない。本当なの。嘘だ。じゃあ本当にお社様のたたりで鬼隠しにあったとでも言うつもりなのか。たたりなんてあるもんか。
Words kept coming out of my mouth like I was chanting a spell. I wasn't speaking by my own will anymore. It was the demon who was controlling me. The demon that had been sleeping deep inside me woke up and was speaking through my mouth. My hands, the demon's hands, grabbed Mion by the neck. Yeah, this is it. This is it, right? Yeah. I don't think they can, unfortunately, right? My hand slowly but surely squeezed Mion's neck. Mion put her hands onto mine. I looked at her fingers. 3 of the fingernails on her left hand look as ugly as mine.
Mio.
Oh, fuck. Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, God. Really? No, of course, though, right? Of course. Because it's not Mion's fault, right? It's obviously... This is like a representation of that, about how Mion herself is just as much not in control of the situation as Shion is, right? Just because Mion is the one benefiting from it, in a way, right? Only even in a sense, right? It's like her life isn't as terrible as Shion's, and like, yes, she's the one getting to be the successor. She is still not the one in control at all, right? Like, she is just as much being swayed by the system uncontrollably as Shion is, right? Like yeah, I assume it's for having helped Shion, right? Tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't have to answer. She had the same scars as I did. She atoned as well. The way those wounds were healing looked the same as mine. So, did she get these wounds around the same time as I did? Oh, did she do it to herself? Just... Mion started sobbing. I stood there, petrified, still wringing Mion's neck.
サトシのことを好きだって分かって、私、シオンとサトシに幸せになってほしかったんだよ。だって、シオンばっかり、いつもかわいそうで。
Yeah. I mean,
私たちは同じ双子なのに。なんでシオンばっかり、いつも差別され。
It's just so sad. How helpless she is, right? How powerless she is, I guess, right? I mean, it's just the same thing. It didn't come as a surprise to me that Mion might also have loved Satoshi-kun as I did. We've always liked the same stuff, and even the same people. She was stupid enough to feel obligated towards someone like me. Oh God, don't, like, shut up.
私ね、バチャにね、怒鳴って言ったんだよ。シオンとサトシをそっとしてあげてほしいって。そしたら、けじめをつけたら見逃そうという話になって。だからね、ちゃんとシオンが頑張ったから。
And yet...
サトシいなくなっちゃった。こんなのひどいよね。
Mion isn't smart enough to shed crocodile tears. Those tears were real. Yeah, no kidding, right? Her tears dissolved my demon's anger like how the sun melts ice.
信じて、シオン。
Cause like any amount of anger I felt towards Mion during all of this, it's like it's never been her fault, right? It's never been her fault, you know. I mean it really hasn't been. It's just this. Again, it's just the anger you naturally feel because she isn't in the same situation Shion is in, right? It's just because of how unfair it is, you know. But it's obviously not her fault, and Mion again is just as powerless to change it, you know. And I believe her, right? I think this is even more reason for me to think I seriously don't think the Sonozakis did it. I seriously don't think they did.
本当にそういうのは何も関わってないの。
But I don't know, is Shion gonna believe it, right?
バッチャはシオンのけじめで全てを許した。だから、
I
サトシに何かするなんて絶対にないの。
I fucking hate the phrasing of saying that she forgave her. Because Shion didn't do anything that needed forgiveness. So that framing just makes me mad. But like, sure.
ごめん。苦しかった。
I took my hands off her neck and held her instead. Obviously, the good ending would be them just having a good, normal relationship, and all of this just not being a thing at all, right? It's like, I'm not mad that Shion isn't mad at Shion, right? I mean, I'm not mad that Shion isn't mad at Mion. I guess I just think who Shion should be mad at is... or you, right? I really think so. Yet even if they don't have anything to do with Sashi's disappearance, I think she should be mad at them anyway. So I don't know.
苦しくなんかないよ。シオンはもっともっと苦しかったんだよね。
In a sense, yeah. I mean, yeah. And I think that knowledge is what drives Mion crazy in a way, right? I think that's, that's just how she is. She's such a empathetic person, really. I shouted at the demon in my mind. I believed in Mion. I had been convinced it was the Sonozaki family that made Sachikun disappear, but Mion denied it, while shedding tears. Between her and me, her tears were more convincing than any words. So, I believe in her. It absolutely wasn't the Sonozaki family that made him disappear. Yeah, so do you really think that Sachikun disappeared because of Yoshiro-sama's curse? Unacceptable, right? Can't accept that. I don't believe in curses, and Mion didn't do it. If it wasn't the curse of the Sonozaki family, who demoned him away? Yeah, I don't know. I just know it's not Mion. It's not the Sonozaki family because Mion says so. But it's like, how strongly can she have this conviction? Like, that's stupid, Shion. Are you going to ignore Sachikun's voice? I know. You don't have to remind me, demon. I can hear his voice. I know he's mumbling with an ambivalent expression, like he always used to. Like he always used to do. Even though he knows help won't come. I'll help him no matter what. I'll save him if he's alive. I'll avenge him if he's dead. But Mion didn't do it. You just want to take it out on somebody. It doesn't matter who. But I'm Shion, not a demon. You're only a part of me. Don't try to take control. Fuck off. Don't ever show up again. The demon faded away. My body went limp, and I fell to the floor while holding Mion.
シオン、大丈夫？もう大丈夫だよ。私たちはどうしてミオンとシオンなんだろうね。
It's like, in a way, it's like this idea of this demon is almost like, it feels very linked to me to like the any kind of recognition as the situation that she's in being unfair, right? Like it's like she's accepted for so long the abuse of the Sonozakis and the system that they represent and her place in it and all of that, and it's like Satoshi is really like the breaking point for that, right? It's like the demon can't accept this much, that Satoshi has to disappear too, there has to be a breaking point. There has to be an eye opening, right? There has to be something,
どうして同じ一人であってはいけないんだろうね。
I think that's a very bad thing to say, right? I think that's a very, like, the reason Mion feels like that is because the fact that there's two of them, the fact that there's Mion and there's Shion, shows the clear, like, issue with the system that they both experience, right? I think essentially what Mion is saying here, even if she herself doesn't recognize it, is that it would be a lot easier to accept the system that they exist in, this whole Sonozaki power structure, all of this, if there's only one of them, right? Then it wouldn't be as obvious that the system is so unfair. There wouldn't be as strong as a reason for both of them to want to fight against it so much, right? So I think in a sense that's really honestly just a very bad line of thinking to go down, right? Like, because if there's only one of them, it would be a lot easier to just roll over and not think about it, right? But because there's two of them, it makes you think about it, right?
やめなよ。私たちはもう何度もそれを自問してきたよ。
Yeah.
でも答えなんか出ない。現実に私とあなたはミオンとシオン。それが現実。
That's just how it is. That's reality.
私ね、自分がミオンでもシオンでも、私たちは私たち。
I just
公平な関係でいたいのに。
I don't know how Shion will feel about that wording. It's just, I don't know, right? It's so hard. It's so hard to take Mion seriously in a way here. Well, maybe I'm thinking about it the wrong way. Just because, again, it's just Mion isn't Shion, right? So it's like, I could just imagine a different world, a different attitude Shion could have, where she responds with anger to this kind of sentiment, because of course it's unfair. It's unfair in a way, Because again, it's Mion is the one benefiting from it in a sense, you know? Even though it's like, yeah, it's like the pain that Mion has to go through is seeing the suffering that Shion goes through in this situation, you know? But again, it's like if there's only one of them, for example, if it was just Mion, she wouldn't have that, you know? So it's like this kind of feeling for Mion does come from a different place, even if Mion does mean well through it, you know? It's frustrating that Shion is the one who is reassuring Mion instead of the other way around, you know? Like, I don't know. And again, I'm not blaming Mion, I guess, right? Just so unfair. It's just so unfair, you know? And I guess it's just unfair that this exists at all. That this stupid, meaningless shit is a thing at all, right? Yeah, right, because Mion doesn't want it either, you know? Yeah. Mion is a demon, and Shion is a human. Even though we're twins, there's a difference between us. Was it impossible for humans to live with demons after all? It should be possible, because they did it before. That's the legend of Hinamizawa. Humans and demons lived in harmony together, as Oishiro-sama watched over them. Mion, Shion, Sachi-kun, demons, humans, Oishiro-sama's curse, the series of mysterious deaths, Sachi-kun's disappearance. We fell asleep while holding each other, while holding everything. Ah, God. What are we gonna do? 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 Right? What are we gonna do? God, lots of pages. Somehow, by the end of the story, by the end of Higurashi, I want the Sonozaki family to be destroyed. Like, I'm so sick of this. It's so stupid and so unfair and so, God. Notebook, page 50. I saw Mia Takano a few times after that. At her core, she was fascinated with the bizarre, and she had an insatiable curiosity that was just as strong. I have to remind myself not to take her story too seriously. Otherwise, I might start believing that Sachi-kun disappeared because of the curse. Interesting. She talks about the dark history of Hinamizawa a lot. It's all very interesting. Her theories are based on nothing but conjecture, but some of her intuition covers facts that only members of the Sonozaki family would know. She thinks that Oishiro-sama's curse is the continuation of these ancient rituals. In other words, she believes that the curse is performed by religious fanatics. I just disagree, I think. According to her theory, a religious cult once existed in Hinamizawa, and the three families stemmed from it. She believes that they are operating behind the scenes in order to revive the dignity of the Onigachi people, which was lost during the Meiji era. Miura-san's theories are far-reaching, and looking at them on a larger scale, they end up making a lot of sense. But they can't offer any explanation for Sachi-kun's disappearance when using them on a smaller one. Yeah, exactly. Her theories are just too broad. Yeah. That's kind of the problem with any broad, like, large-scale explanation for all of it, right? I exchanged information with Oishi every now and then. We'd each expect new leads from each other, but neither of us had any luck. I no longer believed the tip that Sachi-kun might have headed to Tokyo. It was clearly bogus, anyway. I kind of agree, I suppose. Although I can't befriend Oishi, he's been fair about the deal. He alone has been serious about uncovering any new information. Oishi's sources are quite reliable, so whenever I found some dubious tip, I'd check with him to see if it was valid. My meetings with him have diminished in frequency since he's been assigned to new cases. Eventually, we stopped meeting entirely. Oishi stopped investigating, and I reached the limits of my sources of information. People now think that Sachi-kun's disappearance was a supernatural phenomena called demoning away. In Hinamizawa, they refer to his disappearance as him having transferred, and nobody will talk about it otherwise. I don't like the way that phrase is used to erase him. Of course, yeah. Page 85. During the upheaval surrounding Oishiro-sama's curse in 1982, I was pulled this way and that by new leads on Sachi-kun's disappearance. Every time I found information that looked promising, I kept changing my theories. But that also became an incredible burden on me. It wore me down plenty on its own. The fatigue was harsh, but it also provided a very kind acceptance. Bit by bit, it soothed away the anger, sadness, and doubt that wore me down. I'll never forget Sachi-kun. I'll try to forget him and move on. Oh, yeah, it's like what she was thinking about, right? Yeah. I'll never try to forget him and move on. I read that wrong. I constantly repeated this to myself in my head. It's like she has to repeat it forever, right? Because it's like, it's gonna be impossible. There is one day, no matter how much she repeats it, there will be a day where she has lost hope, you know, where... I repeated them to keep my memories of Sachi-kun from fading too, over and over. For the sake of my fond memories of Sachi-kun, together with my fear and my sadness, I kept repeating them forever and ever. Okay. Well, I don't know. Anything else I want to talk about? Trying to think. I mean, I just don't know. I just don't know. Shion's just such a sad character. I don't know. I don't know. I guess that's it. So yeah, please, if you enjoy my videos, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think, and I will see you in the next one.